Welcome year 8s to the next part of our algebra unit. As you can see, we're looking at solving equations which contain brackets now, which is why in a previous lesson we looked at expanding brackets. So hopefully you've now had a little bit of practice with expanding, because as you can see, what we're going to be using is that method of expanding to help us solve these equations that contain brackets. The intention, of course, is just that, but the success criteria, some of the things I'm going to be asking you to do is to make sure that you can expand the left-hand side of the equation, that you'll see the examples I give have brackets on the left-hand side. So we're going to first expand those brackets. Once we have expanded them, we will then apply the operations that we've been using, the reverse operations that we've been using with our solving work already. And we're going to do that to both sides of the equation as always, and we're doing that in order to solve accurately. So reverse operations, I mean opposite of multiplication is division, opposite of addition is subtraction. That's the sort of thing we're talking about. Because of course, when we are solving, we're trying to use that process to make sure that we can get a value for our unknown, value for our pronumeral. So that was our success criteria, broken down just into a couple of steps, and then back here, that was our intention. We're going to be solving these equations with brackets. I'll start off with a couple of examples here that are fairly straightforward. So you'll see here we've got 3 lots of x plus 2 equal to 18. Now, since I'm showing you how expanding is going to help us solve, I'm not going to show you there's actually another way of solving that one right there. But first I'm just going to show you all of these examples using that expanding method. So what I mean by that is, if you have a look over here, if I was to expand the left-hand side, I'm going to do 3 times x and then 3 times 2, like so, and that's giving me 18. From here, I'm going to take away 6 from both sides, since I've got 3x plus 6, and I want to do the opposite of that. That leaves me with 3x equal to 18 minus 6 is 12. And now you might be able to look at it and go, well, clearly x is 12 divided by 3, so x is 4, or you can divide both sides by 3. We'll just fix that up. These cancel out here, which is why I divided by 3, so x must be 4. Now, if I have a look back up the top here, I should be able to check that answer. So if I substitute 4 into here, in other words, pop it there, 4 plus 2 is 6, and 3 6s are 18. So I know that my answer is correct. So as you can see, all I did was blend together 2 previous things that we have covered in class, and that is expanding and solving. So putting those 2 things together. Now, if you have a look at this one, we're going to do the same process, but just to note that sometimes you can get a fraction for your answer. So if we have a look at this first one here, I'm going to first expand. So I'm going to do 2 times 3x, so that's going to give me 6x. And I'm doing 2 times -1, so that's -2. Now, I didn't have to expand the right-hand side. There was no bracket. Now I'm going to add 2 to both sides. So I've got 6x is left on the left. 15 plus 2 is 17. Now you can see here I'm going to get a fraction, because 6 times something giving me 17, well, there isn't a whole number that does that. So I don't know the answer straight away. I need to be able to divide both sides by 6, like so, leaving me with an answer of 17 over 6. I can leave it like that if I want to, because it is a simplified fraction, or if I want, I could change it to a mixed number. So this would be the same as saying 17 divided by 6, so that goes twice. 2 6s are 12, which leaves 5 remainder. So 5/6 is what is left over. Just a note though, you can leave it as 17 over 6. If you're leaving something as a fraction, just make sure it is simplified, which this one of course is. Moving across now, here we've got three lots of this, what's in this bracket here is equal to negative 13 now. So just be careful of that negative, make sure you've noticed that it's there. Let's expand. 3 times 1, 3 by negative 2x will give me negative 6x, and that's equal to negative 13. Now, a lot of you have had a bit of trouble with these sorts of equations where you've got the x term is second and you've got this number at the front. Just a reminder, that's positive 3. I wanted to remind you of that because that's why I'm going to take away 3 from both sides, because I've got 3 being added essentially on this left-hand side. When I take away that 3, I'm not left with 6x, I'm actually left with negative 6x. So keep in mind that all of this bit here, this term, has that sign in front of it. That's the bit that's left over, because this positive 3 and taking away of 3 is the only bit that's cancelled out. Just clean that up a bit so I don't have boxes around every term. That's equal to, of course, whoops, change the colour. We're doing negative 13 take away 3, so I'm left with negative 16 on that side. And again, we're not going to get a whole number here, as you can see, because there isn't a number that I can multiply by negative 6 to give me negative 16. There isn't a whole number that will do that. So let's now divide both sides by negative 6. Okay, it is going to cancel out from here, both negatives as well, since a negative divided by a negative gives me a positive. Leaves me with just x. Now on this side, I've got negative and a negative, of course, will give me a positive. So that gives me 16 over 6. However, that can be simplified because we've got a common factor of 2. 2 goes into 16 8 times, since 8 2s are 16, and 3 2s are 6. So this is the same as 8 over 3. If you are changing to a mixed number, again, you just have to decide how many 3s go into 8. Well, 2 3s will give me 6. But 3 3s will give me 9, so it doesn't go 3 times. So 2 3s will give me 6 and 2 remainder. So 2 2/3. I'll just put or, because that is optional to change it to mixed. You only really have to change it to mixed if you're instructed to do that. Okay, most of the way there now. I'll just show you a couple more. Here's one I wanted to show you because we've got 2 negatives here. So there's one out the front and there's one inside the bracket as well, just so we have extra practice with those situations. And that's equal to 10. So let's first expand. We're doing negative 3 times 4x. So that's going to give me a negative since it's a negative by a positive. And 3 4s are 12, so it's 12x, negative 12x. Now we're doing negative 3 by negative 5, just so I make sure I don't lose that negative. That's going to give me a positive, and 3 5s are 15, and that's equal to 10. Now what I'm going to do is take away 15 from both sides, leaving me with negative 12x on the left. It's now gone from here, and 10 minus 15 is negative 5. Again, we're getting a fraction as our answer here, so we've just got to make sure that we divide by the correct number here. That's where lots of mistakes can happen as well. So just to remember that I want to be able to cancel out that negative 12, so that's why I divide by that negative 12. It's cancelled out from here, leaving me with x. And if we have a look at this side, we've got negative divided by a negative, so they actually cancel out as well. My final answer here is just going to be 5/12, since it's less than 1, so I can't change it to a mixed number. Also, I can't simplify this. 5 doesn't go into 12, And 5 and 12 don't share any common factors since 5 is prime. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is just show you a couple of worded varieties of this style of question. We're asked to write an equation and then solve. So we've got 8 being subtracted from a number. When it says a number, that's what we're trying to find. This is unknown. I'm going to call that number x. So I'll just pop it down there, x. And it says 8 is subtracted from that number. So this is subtracted from the x. So it should be x take away that 8. And the result is multiplied by 2. So the result of this subtraction, that is multiplied by 2. So what's really important is I put the bracket there to make sure that that subtraction happens first. Because if I just wrote this, now using BODMAS, this is not going to subtract 8 first. It's going to multiply 8 by 2, and then that result, 16, will be taken away from x. And that's not what I wanted. It told me that the 8 was first subtracted, and the result of that was multiplied by 2. Now I'm putting the 2 out the front because we tend not to write this, do we? So we don't use that multiplication symbol. So if that's being multiplied by 2, I simply need to put a 2 at the front of that bracket. The final result is 10. That means after doing all of that calculation, you must get 10 as your answer. So I put equals to 10. Let's expand now. 2 times x, 2 times negative 8 equals 10. Let's now add 16 to both sides. So 2x is 26. From there, I just need to know what do I multiply by 2 to get 26. So you could write x equals 13, or you can multiply both sides by 2. So 26 divided by 2. And there's my final answer at the bottom. I check it by putting 13 up here. 13 minus 8 is 5, and 2 times 5 is 10, so that works out well. Final one now, just another worded one so that you've got another chance to practice that. 3 is added to a number, and we're told here that that number is x. I was going to use x anyway, but if it had told me that that number is going to be called y, then I would use y in my equation. 3 is added to that, so I'll put plus 3. And the result is multiplied by negative 2. The result of this bit is multiplied by negative 2. The final result, so all of that calculation, all up, is equal to negative 2 as well. Okay, so let's expand. Negative 2 by x is negative 2x. Negative 2 by positive 3 is negative 6. That's equal to negative 2. First step, let's add this 6 to both sides. So negative 2x equals negative 2 plus 6 is positive 4. Okay, so now all we need to do is divide both sides by negative 2. We've got 4 divided by 2 is 2, but this is a positive divided by a negative, so that gives us a negative. X must then be equal to negative 2. We can check it out. We pop it up here. Negative 2 plus 3 is positive 1. Negative 2 times 1 is negative 2. So I'm now very confident that my answer is correct. I'm going to stop there, ladies. Remember, those key points is that we have expanded, we've expanded our left-hand side of the equation first, and then we've just used the same methods that we've used in previous lessons to solve, so nothing has changed in that respect. We're simply just bringing together some of the concepts that we've been practicing.